Back in 2007, the Will Smith-led adaptation of I Am Legend hit cinemas. While the film was received okay, it never really became much of a cultural icon, and doesn't get talked about much now. That was always a bit of a shame to me, because I actually think I Am Legend is a very good film. When I saw it in cinemas as a teenager, I was blown away by it, and in retrospect, it was probably one of my favourite films for a while. It was the film that actually sparked my interest in post-apocalyptic fiction, priming me for the zombie cultural craze that would soon come afterwards, with the popularity of various zombie stories, biggest among them being The Walking Dead. So when I recently learned that all this time later an I Am Legend sequel is in development, you might think I'd be pleased about that, but I actually think the sequel is a pretty bad idea. I'll explain why. For this I Am Legend sequel, Will Smith is to reprise his role as Robert Neville from the first film, which you might have some questions about if you've seen the first film, because, spoiler alert, the character dies at the end of it. So how are the filmmakers going to get around this? In an older sequel idea, Robert Neville was to return as a clone, but they're not doing that. That would obviously be really stupid, but what they are doing is arguably not much better. There's a director's cut of I Am Legend with an alternate ending, where Robert Neville survives, and the sequel will be treating that version as canon, following on from the events there. This is not a good idea in my opinion. I know there are people who prefer the alternate ending, and that's fair, because it does answer some questions and follow through with some themes set up throughout the film, which are left as loose threads in the theatrical cut. The director's cut ending is also more thematically in line with the I Am Legend book. But in spite of that, I still prefer the theatrical cut ending because I think it's more emotionally impactful. It also shows the Dark Seeker disease gets a cure, the meaning of the film's title packing a different kind of punch to the book. Because to protect the cure he's created, Robert Neville sacrifices himself, the world implied to be saved as a result. Another thing that's slightly unsatisfying with the director's cut ending is that it's unclear what happens with the cure. Robert gives the cured Dark Seeker woman he used as a test subject back to the infected group he took her away from, and it's not mentioned after that if he can use what he's learnt to cure others. Perhaps it's meant to be implicit that he could, but it's never made clear. Robert's mission to cure the Darkseeker virus has been his primary motivation throughout the film up to this point. It's been an obsession for him. It's why he stayed in New York amongst the infected while his family tried to flee. So the lack of clarity about his success makes it feel like there's a bit of a loose end. I suppose the story is raising questions about whether he even should be trying to find a cure, or if he should just leave the infected alone, since rather than sick people, they could be deemed just a different type of species now, and want to be left alone. But still, the fact that the theatrical cut gives a nice conclusive ending here, showing that Robert Neville has succeeded in finding a cure for the Darkseeker virus, which will be used to save the world from it, again, is a bit more emotionally impactful in my opinion. It shows the goal Neville dedicated his life to has been given a payoff, and there's a catharsis to that. This version makes for a nice self-contained story without the modern, exhausting prospect of IP milking through who knows how many sequels and spin-offs. It's a shame that's being undone now with this new sequel. This is one of the instances where I align with test audiences for the first I Am Legend film, because their feedback is what led to the theatrical cut ending. They preferred that version too. Let's call this what it is. Bringing Robert Neville back for this sequel is a retcon, and as they go, it's about as big of a retcon as you can get. The theatrical cut is what was in cinemas, and is what most people know. Most people who have seen the film won't have seen the director's cut, and probably won't even know it exists. So there's going to be a lot of confusion amongst much of the audience when they watch the sequel, and the reviews might be pretty negative as a result. Because people will be like, what the hell? This guy died in the last film. How is he back? It'll seem like the filmmakers are incompetent. Even if this sequel contains information in an opening title card, flashbacks, or through other methods to recap the events of the director's cut ending and explain how Robert Neville is alive, that won't help. Because people will still be like, but I saw the first film and this stuff didn't happen. It'll have to be made absolutely explicit to people that the theatrical cut of the first film just doesn't count, and the sequel follows on from the lesser known director's cut. It's really not a good way to kick things off. So instead of this ill-conceived sequel, what should be done with the I Am Legend property? The 2007 I Am Legend is adapted from Richard Matheson's novella of the same name. The novella is very good, and the film is overall a pretty decent adaptation. While it departs from the book in some major ways, the film tells a good alternate version of I Am Legend, with some justified changes to make it work better for cinema, allowing it to stand as its own story that takes inspiration from Matheson's source material. That said, it is a shame that the film squanders some excellent material from the book that could have easily been incorporated. Overall, the book is much more interesting and innovative, but the film packs more of an emotional punch. So they each have their own distinct virtues, which means there's ample scope to go in one of two core directions with the property from this point. The first is building out a franchise from the 2007 film. This could include sequels that don't feature Robert Neville, prequels or sidequels with original characters, showing their experiences in the post-apocalypse, or perhaps a TV show which takes one of these aforementioned paths. But here's the second core direction to take the franchise in, and this is my preference. At this point, rather than building out a franchise from the 2007 I Am Legend, I think it would be better to do a more direct and faithful adaptation of the book, because it is different enough to the 2007 film to warrant that. And enough time has passed from 2007 that a reboot or remake is totally justifiable. This new, more faithful adaptation of the book could either take the form of a film or a TV series, or a film followed by a TV series in the same universe. There's so much great material to play around with from the book, which was barely or not at all touched on in the 2007 film. The book presents a far richer and more unique world than the film, and so there's just more material to utilise there, more intrigue to draw an audience in. Minor spoilers for the book here. In the book, the infected are referred to as vampires. They're not dark seekers as the film euphemistically refers to them, they are vampires with a hard V, and they're depicted uniquely. They're still deranged and animalistic, like in the film, but they can talk, and they stand outside Robert Neville's house at night, taunting him and goading him to come out. A scientific hypothesis is given for them, presenting their vampirism as a disease, postulating that accounts of vampires through the ages may be explained by this disease, which exploded into an epidemic in the modern age. Vampires' aversion to garlic, crucifixes, and mirrors are all given scientific rationale in the book, and it's fascinating. Anyway, that's a brief insight into the book for those unfamiliar with it, and should demonstrate how much material is available to make a fresh adaptation from. In conclusion, the I Am Legend sequel film is a bad idea. There's ample scope to do something better with the property, and build a potential franchise, if that's the goal, on firmer ground. I'm willing to be proven wrong about the new sequel, and I'd like it to be good, but I'm very sceptical, and think it's off to a bad start. Anyway, what do you think? Do you agree with the points I've made here? Or do you think, in spite of everything counting against it, this sequel will work well? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, see you next time.